Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Careers in Tech Workshop. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. We have some exciting panelists who are here to share their inspiring stories and some of their experiences in their career in the tech industry. So I hope you are ready to get to know some of these panelists. Here is what's on the agenda today. So we're going to walk through a quick message from our sponsors. And after we're done with that, we're going to jump straight into our tech professionals panel. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end. I know that there might be a lot of questions regarding next steps and some of the things that you can do in order to maybe branch out into some of these industries. We're doing something a little different today, and right after the general Q&A session, we're going to have a breakout room for about 10 minutes, and these sessions won't be recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to get to know our panelists a little better. And if you have some questions, maybe you want to share some contact information with our panelists today, you can do that in the breakout rooms, and then we'll just wrap it up. So let's move on to a quick message from our sponsors today. Sankofa Tech is a program designed to help students who are currently enrolled in universities pursuing degrees in the tech industry. So the Achievers in Technology program is designed to do just that. Some of the advantages or benefits of the Achievers in Technology program are mentorship. So each scholar, anyone who applies and gets accepted into the program will get mentorship from professionals who work in some of the top technology companies across the United States. Each student will receive a scholarship of $500 per year. So for a 4-year degree program, that would be around $2,000. You'll be able to get some technical skills development and also build a project or a program that can help you stand out when you are applying for jobs. So what are some of the criteria? Firstly, you must be entering a US college or university as a first-year student in the 2022-2023 academic year, demonstrate an interest in pursuing a tech career, be of African descent. We want to make sure that we can push as many students from the great land of Africa into this program, and also, come from a low-income household so we can help those who need it the most. So once again, if you are currently enrolled in a degree program, please apply for sankofatech.org/AIT. All right, so before we jump into our panelists for today, as you know, this is an interactive session. So if you have your phone with you right now, I'd like you to take out your phone or any computer that you have and go to menti.com and enter the code 28920489. This will provide you the ability to ask questions anonymously and also participate in some of the polls that you have. So I'll give everyone about 30 to 45 seconds to go to menti.com, enter the code 28920489, and we can have some fun together in an interactive session. So when you are ready, please post in the chat, just type ready, and then we can begin. I'll give it about 45 seconds. So menti.com, the code is 28920489, and type that in and we can get going. I see someone already hearting the instructions. Okay, that's awesome. If you have put in the code, once again, just type in the chat ready, and then we can kind of kick off with our first interactive question. All right, ready. Okay, so I'd like to get a sense of where folks are joining today. So once again, if you are new to Careers in Tech Workshop, please go to the instructions on the screen, www.menti.com, enter the code 28920489, and let's have some fun interacting together. So the first question I have for everyone today is, where are you located? Just type in the location that you were joining from so we can get a sense of where folks are from. So let's just take about 20, Maryland. Okay, 20 seconds to do that. Have someone from Maryland, California, Dallas, Riverside. Awesome. Loma Linda. Okay, where else? I'm hoping to have someone from Alaska one day. We have someone from Minnesota. Awesome. Let's see where else. New Jersey. New Jersey. All right. All right. Okay. Any other locations not represented? So we have someone from New York. Okay. All right. Anyone else? So I see Loma Linda. I think we have from our screen, it looks like the most people are from Maryland. Maryland. Oh, Delaware. Okay. We have someone from Delaware as well. All right. We'll move on to a quick second question over here. What attracted you to this workshop? What attracted you to this workshop? The first option is health informatics, software engineering, network engineering, or other. So, okay, we also have someone from North Carolina as well. All right. So it looks like Yvonne, you're winning here. A lot of folks interested in health informatics. Awesome. Let's see if Kofi can make some gains on you here. Emmanuel, things are not looking good. Okay, one person interested in network engineering, and any other votes? Any other votes coming in? Let's see. Okay, so software engineering are two highest, software engineering and health informatics, and network engineering as well. All right. Cool, awesome. All right, so let's move on to, and this is the last question, and then we're gonna jump straight into our panel discussion. What best represents you today? So are you someone who's looking to switch jobs? You're a professional, you wanna switch jobs, or maybe you're just a student looking for options after school, or maybe you're a parent who wants career information for their child. Which one best represents you today? Okay, so got some students here looking for options after school, which is awesome. That's why we're doing this, to provide information and resources to you. Okay, looks like we have folks also who are just happy to be here. Awesome. All right, we're gonna jump into our panel discussion. And our first guest is Yvonne Kanyage Nyenya. Now, Yvonne and I have some history for those of you who don't know. Yvonne and I'm actually gonna spotlight here, smiling. Okay, so Yvonne and I, we grew up on the campus of Valley View University together. We were both neighbors, and also in the same class. So Yvonne and I were part of the very first class of computer science students at the Valley View University about 20 years ago. I don't want to give away any ages here, but let's just say 20 years. And Yvonne is currently a program manager. Actually, we both now work at Amazon. So that's another thing that we share in common. Yvonne is a program manager working as a clinical data analytics person. She's actually also a nurse. She's a nurse turned informaticist. That's a long word and a tricky word to say, but I said it. She's passionate about making quality healthcare accessible through the use of data and technology. Yvonne has about 13 years of healthcare experience, ranging from patient care to clinical data analytics. She's currently a program manager, as I said, at Amazon Care. And she is pursuing a master's degree in health delivery science at the Cedars Sinai Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. And so I'd like to welcome you, Yvonne, to Careers in Tech. And why don't you begin telling us just your story? You went from computer science to nurse, and now you are a program manager in a clinical data analytics role. So tell us kind of where that journey kind of started.
Well, as you said, we started out in computer science, and when we moved to the United States, not all of my credits were applicable, at least were accepted at the school that I was going to. I later found out it could have been different. But anyway, I was there, and I always had an interest in healthcare. It's just entry was more, there were a lot of barriers to entry at the time back in Africa anyway. So when I got here and I had the opportunity to go to nursing school, I did that. I got a bachelor's from the University of Detroit Mercy, and Michigan was too cold. The Midwest was too cold, so I moved to Maryland and started my career at Johns Hopkins. And there I was a telemetry nurse and then transitioned into critical care medicine, so medical ICU. And my intention was to go to anesthesia school, nursing anesthesia school. However, while I worked there was an opportunity to help support electronic health record implementations. And so instead of using consultants, we were using, this program used clinicians that already worked at Johns Hopkins and provided, knew the workflows, were familiar with how things were done at the unit level. And so we started just supporting whenever there would be a new module going up. We would be part of the beta group. So we would test out the workflows, and not from a quality assurance perspective, but just making sure that things work as we expected as clinicians. So it was a group that was very multidisciplinary. We had physicians, we had residents, we had people that worked in the lab, we had nurses, of course. But it was a great way to kind of do overtime without the physical strain of overtime and the responsibility of a patient. But it also allowed me to meet different people and be in different departments, and Johns Hopkins is pretty large, but also just really know about upcoming technologies and kind of get a window into how we get a product and how we get it pretty much implemented on the unit, but also to be able to get feedback and see resolution of the feedback. So that's kind of where I started doing that. And so when I was about to have my first daughter, I decided at the time the hours were just not the greatest having a new child, and I transitioned completely into clinical informatics. And there I designed order sets, so taking physician orders from paper and conceptualizing what that would look like electronically, and then making sure that the workflows really made sense. And that required just working with a variety of groups, getting consensus among the groups, and then also working with the very hardcore tech side and translating medical speech into technology speech. That was exciting enough. And then in 2015, I got laid off because the company I worked for was restructuring. And so our whole team was eliminated. And I was also very pregnant with my second child. So I was home and I didn't have a job. And the area we were in had very few health systems. So I didn't have too much choice. So I searched for quite a while. And God being so good, I got this job as a clinical optimization specialist, which was my foray into analytics. There I started being, again, the middle person between operational leaders and operational clients in the hospital setting and the analytics team, so the hardcore report writers. Because the problem we're trying to solve was that operational leaders would ask a question, they want to answer a question, they ask for a report, the report comes back and it is not answering the question. And we figured that something was getting lost in translation. So I was going to translate again. So that was what I was doing. But aside from that, I also developed dashboards and did a lot of storytelling with data. And currently, I also work in a similar realm, except I work more specifically with clinical quality. So really looking to see whether the care we're providing is delivering the outcomes we look for, and that we're providing care that's evidence-based. So that's where I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, you have a unique advantage in the sense that you are currently, you're a nurse, and you also have a computer science degree from, Valley View University. And so one of the questions that I have is that, based on your career, is it a prerequisite to have, let's say somebody has a computer science degree, is it a prerequisite for them to also be a nurse? Or do you think someone can move into the health informatics industry without necessarily becoming a nurse or having that background, or vice versa, if someone's a nurse and they want to move in and they don't have the computer science background?
Well, I don't have a computer science degree, let's correct that, but I think it's not a prerequisite. It's an advantage. That's my superpower, is having that clinical knowledge. And so when you're talking, because it gives you credibility, right? If I go in front of physicians and I'm a nurse, I can say, I know what your workflow is like. I know a lot of the pain points, especially having done some clinical informatics. But if you're really like a clinician trying to get into the technology realm, I think the most important skill you need to have is to be curious. You really have to foster like an attitude of continuous learning. You cannot be stagnant. Technology changes just about every couple of hours sometimes, depending on what it is, but there's so much that changes. But if you're curious and you're willing to go out there and learn and immerse yourself also in the experience, if you're not a clinician, for example, yeah, it would be helpful if you're a clinician, but if you're not, read about healthcare. There are a lot of resources out there. There are YouTube videos, there are books, there are many, many resources out there that do help bridge that knowledge gap that exists. So you can at least get an understanding of how things work. Another thing that's helped me a lot, especially when I was working with groups whose workflows I didn't know, was to go to the Gemba. And going to the Gemba is going to where the work is getting done and just observing. Because you find that when you ask people to describe what they do or how they do things, you find that they will tell you what they think you want to hear. However, if you're there and you're observing, you actually start to see dynamics that you don't typically get when you're conducting an interview, unless you have very robust tools for doing that. So it is not impossible to get into health analytics if you don't have healthcare experience. There are a few Coursera courses actually that kind of introduce healthcare analytics. I think it's one of the resources I may have found that would be helpful, just to kind of get an introduction to healthcare. For example, healthcare data, how is it structured? It's not always structured like any other data, but also just what do we do in health informatics? Like what is the crux of the work that we need to do? So it is not impossible, and not the degrees are not a prerequisite. It's really, a lot of it lies on you.
All right. My next question, to answer the elephant in the room, a career obviously has to be something that is attractive financially. So what are some of the prospects if someone is looking to move into the health informatics industry? What should they expect in terms of pay? And maybe you can highlight some of the different roles, from entry level all the way to maybe like chief medical information officer. What does the pay salary look like for some of these roles?
It is very variable. The variations, like you said, are, of course, how much experience you have, and also what kind of health system you're working into. So for example, and then also your entry level. So let me see if I can pull up some data around that. So let's see, someone with, this is data from 2020, and on average, about most nurse informaticists make about $100,000. Again, it can vary by region, but that's about how much they are, you would find them. And those with the highest level of education, so either PhD or master's degree, can clock in about $150,000. And if you're an LPN or an ADN, you can go as low as $60,000. So it really varies depending on how much experience you've got. If you add certifications, you probably will get a couple of thousands more. And then also same with degrees, like, if you get a master's in nursing or something like that, you would, and of course regions, California is going to be way out there, but you got to factor in cost of living. And then the other thing is also the size of the organization you're in. Some organizations that are much smaller just don't have, even if you have all those degrees, they don't have the funds to pay that much either. And then you have the likes of tech that will pay a whole lot if they see that you're bringing something to the table that's advantageous. So if you find yourself in a niche area within tech, then you could probably make a whole lot more too. Yeah.
Awesome. My last question before we move on is just in terms of that individual who's listening to you and who's inspired by you and your story. What are some of the steps that someone would have to do in order to branch into health informatics?
The first thing I would say is network. I didn't hear about this informatics gig until I was just talking to one of the tech guys who happened to be on the unit fixing my computer, and I was like, hey, I was asking him about what he does, like what is, like, just conversations. And you would be amazed at how much people are willing to share with you when you ask questions and when you're curious. So that's one, network. And you have now LinkedIn that shows you so much about the person that's on LinkedIn. So don't be afraid to reach out. Like, if you see a job that you think you would be interested in, recruiters get paid to recruit people. And the faster they do it, the better. So if you come in and you showcase yourself as someone that's interested, that could at least meet the entry-level skills they need, definitely talk to them and reach out to them. Don't be bashful. The other part is, there are certification courses that help you bridge into, that help bridge that gap that you may have where you want to get into the industry. And then sometimes you start somewhere and you think, well, let's say you want to be a clinical data analyst, and you're offered maybe a role that's not exactly that. Sometimes it's okay to take that and learn and go in with a plan to just continue to seek other opportunities by networking, by staying curious. One thing I wish I had done better when I was, for example, when I started my nursing career, was to really be involved in a lot of the committees. So for example, on the units, a lot of hospitals have these unit-based committees where you, for example, have a super user for the electronic medical records. So for example, if you use Epic, you're the unit super user. One of the things that is a great way to get the experience without having to completely transition right away is to volunteer and be the unit super user, because that puts you in touch with the technology team, the information systems team, which is typically where the informaticists tend to sit. And you can now ask them questions and start to network with them. And when there are opportunities, you might be the first person. If they know that you're interested, I know there are a few people who I've just linked up with some opportunities because I knew they were interested. And I said, hey, we've got somebody who's always asked questions, has been curious, has been interested in this field. Maybe reach out and let's see whether they would be interested. The other thing is keep your resume updated. Lots of skills, Excel, SQL. There are a lot of other things that you can get that would be useful. So yeah.
Awesome. And I can't stress enough how important it is to keep your resume and your LinkedIn up to date. I spend an inordinate amount of time on LinkedIn trying to recruit people for my team at Amazon. And some people just miss out because they have their locations wrongly matched to, for example, Ghana when they live in the United States. The title of their LinkedIn is absolutely wrong and not related to what they're doing. So that's another very important point. All right, I know that there are going to be lots of questions, so we're going to leave it here and we're going to move on to another panelist so that we can save some time for questions. I'm sure there'll be plenty at the end, but I want to thank you so much for your time, Yvonne, and sit tight. We'll come back to you very shortly. Okay, so we're going to transition into our next speaker. And I want to start off with a quick quiz. So if you want to participate, simply go to menti.com and type in the code 28920489. And I have a really short question. It's actually just true or false. I want to see how many people are aware of some of the things that software engineers do before we introduce our next panelist. Okay, looks like we have folks ready. I'm about to press enter and we'll get started with the question. So here is the question. Software engineers only build websites and mobile apps. True or false? True or false? So you have some responses coming in. Remember, if you want to participate, go to menti.com. And here is the poll. Okay. Wow, it looks like we have some software engineers over here. It looks like everyone got that question correct, which is amazing. That's awesome. Okay, we're going to transition to our next presenter. His name is, let me switch screens. His name is Kofi Amansi Boateng, and he is a software engineer at Meta. Now, for those of you who don't know what Meta is, Meta, it was formerly called Facebook. So it's the same company, but they've rebranded themselves. Meta, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why. Why would you call yourself Meta? But anyway, I'm gonna leave that to you, Kofi. Maybe you can give us some explanation as to what that means in the metaverse or whatever. But I'm excited to have Kofi here to share his experiences. Just a quick introduction. So Kofi is currently a software engineer at Meta, which is formerly Facebook. Before then, he was a software engineer at Amazon. He ran away before I could hire him to my team. So he used to work at Audible, audiobooks. So a little background into Kofi. He initially actually planned to study mechanical and electrical engineering in college. But after taking a course, he then fell in love with programming and computer science and everything related to data structures and algorithms. And he pursued a bachelor's and a master's degree in computer science, which he now holds from the Columbia University. Kofi, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about your story and your experience.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, so I think you've really given a very good summary, but basically, I came to the US first to study as an undergraduate student at Columbia. So before that, I was at SOS. If there's anyone from SOS here, hey. So it's a high school in Ghana. So over there, I was kind of gifted in maths and physics and all those things, biology. So coming to college, I didn't really know what to study. I knew I wanted to do anything related to science, so mechanical engineering. At some point in time, even I was thinking of medicine, like all these things were in my mind. And then I had a mentor at Columbia who also came from my high school. And we had very similar skills. So he told me he had taken a couple of classes in computer science and had gotten a job as a software engineer at Goldman Sachs. And he was really encouraging me to at least give it a try and just see if I don't like it, I don't like it. And so I was like, oh, okay, fine. I mean, why not? So the next semester, I decided to take a class in Java. It was an introductory class to computer programming. And yeah, my mind was just blown. Like just the idea that I can make the computer do something. Like it was literally like I can make electricity and metal draw something on the screen or do some calculation. Or yeah, it was just very intriguing. So I just fell in love with it. I would say though, like that was my very first experience actually coding when I took the class. So it wasn't that easy, but it was so enjoyable that I put in the time and effort, and over time, like I really understood what I was doing. And so like once that happened and I took the introductory class, I was like, okay, like I know this is what I'm going to do. So then I just decided to switch over to computer science. And from there, it was more of like just practicing. Um, and eventually I ended up at Amazon after graduating. And I've been in the field since then. So that's just a brief introduction.
Awesome. Thank you, Kofi. Now, one thing you mentioned was the fact that you kind of fell in love with the programming once you found it, but you also started programming pretty late, right? So, what's your advice to someone who is kind of in a similar position to you, who's contemplating what they should do? Even from high school, right? Like, what advice would you give someone in high school who's thinking about a career or something to do in the future, and they want to maybe try computer science?
Yes. So actually, now is the best time to actually get into computer science because everything is online now. You can take so many courses. You can literally just go to YouTube and learn for free. You can also go to Udemy and just take a couple of introductory courses for like very little money. And there are also so many boot camps going on around. Like I know at least in New York, there are so many boot camps going on that you can just go there and learn how to code. And so I'd say it's very easy to just get in. There's so many resources for you at your disposal. So just give it a try. Like if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I'm quite sure everybody that tries it would at least admire it. Even if they don't want to pursue it, they will admire this field. So
Awesome. And once again, I'm going to ask you the money question because I think a lot of people, right, before they will jump ship and commit to investing in a career, a lot of people want to understand some of the perks of the job, some of the advantages. Now, back in the day when Google first started, they had a lot of perks, right? You could get a job with Google. They would give you free food. They would pay for your accommodation in some senses if you're an intern. So tell us about some of the perks of being a software engineer. What's it like? And do you get any free food at Meta?
all right. So this is just related to perks, right? So yes, actually, so working from home, like you can, even before COVID, a lot of us could just work from home because you actually don't need to be in the office to do the kind of work that we do. And also, yes, I have been getting free food ever since I started working. So actually at Audible, I was getting free food as well. And also at Audible, I was getting some reimbursement on my rent, actually, because I decided to live close to the company. Yes, Facebook free food as well. Free laundry, even though they kind of taken that back now, but it was free laundry. You can literally just go to the office and pick anything up, like pick a charger, pick a test device, pick up anything. As long as you're using it for work, like it's for you, as long as you're working there. So there's just a lot of perks. I mean, so yeah.
I guess the only thing that they don't serve is jollof or maybe some banku with some tilapia, and on Sundays or something like that, right?
Right. Even yeah. So I would say, although I'd say Indian food is quite close. So there's some Indian food that's like almost like jollof. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I know there are going to be questions. So I'm going to make sure we leave more time for questions. So what I want to do is I want to ask one last question about pay scale, right? So I am also a software engineer and a manager, so I kind of have information, but I'd like to hear from you just some of the kind of the pay scale for a software engineer beginning from entry level, going all the way to a principal software engineer. So maybe you can talk about that a little.
All right. Yeah. So I can talk on Meta, at least for what is public, at least, because that's what I'm kind of privy to. So say an engineer that's just coming out of college. Say you haven't written any code before outside of school or anything, but maybe you didn't even go to school, but you ended up being hired as a software engineer. And also, let me preview this, like whatever I'm giving now is all public information. I just went to levels.fyi and just got this for Meta, Facebook, or anything. So straight out of college, you would be making, say, 185K to like 250K, like straight out of college. At say Meta. And then as you work and you are being like, you get to the next level, you then go to the like 270K to like 350K range a year. And then as you work and get to the next level, senior engineer, like 390K to like 550K. And then as you work and get to the next level, there's like a staff engineer. So that's like 590K to like 900K. And then as you work and you get to the next level, there's like principal engineer. That's like 920K to like 1.4 million. And then as you work and you get to the next level, there's like senior principal engineer. That's like more than 1.5 million and above. Of course, like it's not just like you just working, it's quite involved, but like this is just the pay scale I got from levels.fyi, which is very public on Meta, that is. So
awesome, thank you. That's a lot of levels. Yeah, so I appreciate the information you've shared about just the pay scale. It is very lucrative, so it's definitely something that we want more Africans, especially Ghanaians, to consider when they are choosing their next career choice. I'm going to move on quickly. Thank you, Kofi. I'm going to move on quickly to our next panelist so that we can have time for questions. Emmanuel, who's going to be sharing some information. But before then, let me jump into my quiz. Let's see here. Okay, and the next quiz I have is related to network engineering. So once again, if you want to participate, use the, okay. That came quicker than I expected. It's a true or false question. Network engineers build the internet. Is that true or false? Network engineers build the internet. Is that true or is it false? Let's see what people guessed. All right, so we have 5 people saying that it is true that network engineers can build the internet, and 2 people saying that is false. I'm going to let Emmanuel answer that question for us. So I'd like to welcome Emmanuel Amache to our show. And before I actually let him speak, I have a picture that I'm going to show. This picture was taken more than 35 years ago. This was a picture. Let's see if folks can see and guess who the folks are in this picture. Let me transition here. Okay. Can anyone guess where Emmanuel is in this picture? You can just put it in the chat if you recognize where he is. Just put a thumbs up or yes, you can see where Emmanuel is. I am also in this picture, by the way. Second from the right. All right. we have a successful guest. Okay, so Emmanuel and I grew up in England. This was my birthday party. I can't even remember how old I was, Emmanuel. This let me be like I was 7 or 8. But it's been a very long time, and we shared a lot of memories growing up in England, and it's just great to reconnect again, both here in the United States. So let me tell you a little bit about Emmanuel Amache. So Emmanuel holds a BA, Bachelor of Arts degree in Product Design, Sustainable Futures, but is currently an IT manager. He has almost 20 years of experience in the industry. Emmanuel has had the opportunity to work as a desktop support technician, server administrator, network administrator, and he desires to open up an IT company that will one day help young ethnic individuals leapfrog in their IT careers. Emmanuel, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your journey been like?
Well, first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you for definitely having me on the show. You know, those pictures bring back a lot of good memories, to be honest, right? Those were the good days.
That's right.
So I guess for myself, my journey has been, I won't say too simple, but pretty straightforward. You know, originally, I think my dad was studying in Aswa, right, Nigeria, the Adventist school there, and that's kind of where I was born. Then I was in the UK, so I was in Ghana for maybe 2-3 years, if I remember right, and then from there, moved to the UK, and that's kind of my beginnings, if you want to call it that. So over there, finished school, and then I went into an IT. I actually did a few IT courses, right, or exams, so to speak. And it was one of those fast track exams that they compact into like a week on training and then a week off, and you do, you know, revision, and then you attempt to take the exam on that Friday, then you go back the next week for a completely different IT course. And so I think on that course we did like 6 or 7 exams. And so that was like a week back to back to back to back. And then there you had things like C++ from, Networking Plus. You had network operations. When I say operations back then, it was things like Windows. Back then, I think it was like Windows 7 or something like that. I knew it was 2003 on the server side. Then you did Linux, and then you did, I think eventually you then did Cisco as Cisco Networks as part of the closing part of that course. So finished uni, you know, found it hard to kind of get work, specifically in the product design area. And the UK is pretty small, and eventually when I did find one, it was the equivalent of, you know, from Texas to Alaska or to New York, right? It's such a huge jump. And at that time, I didn't really want to move away from family. So I did the next best thing when I did this fast track IT course. And so that's kind of where I got all my certificates kind of in the beginning. And it was brutal. It was very brutal. So finished that, got my first job as a systems, I think like a systems administrator. You did desktop, you did server, both Windows and Linux and all of that stuff. Did that for about 6 months. And then went from there, and that was like a trial basis, like for 6 months, zero experience, 6 months, finished that. Then I went into actual desktop support because that was the role that I found, and I found it much closer to home, and it paid a lot better than my previous one. So I did that for a while, and then eventually, after a few years, moved from there in the same company into the network area and became a network system administrator. And that was what allowed me to be honest, that's what allowed me to move to the US, right? Not just that, obviously, my missus is from the US, but that allowed me to move to the US, and I was stationed over at Denver, Colorado, for the first 6 months. From there, moved to Texas, became a system architect for the next role that I was, a network architect for the next role that I was at, played a lot in the data center arena, building out data centers and computes type systems there. So yeah, I got to play around with a fair few things, and then eventually moved to Novartis, where I was a senior network administrator. And then Alcon split from Novartis maybe about a year or two ago. And then from there, I became a LAN and wireless and DVI's manager for that company. So that's my current role that I'm at, and hopefully that's a short summary of kind of where I am.
Awesome, thanks so much. Now, you moved continents, in the pursuit of a job that assimilated with you in terms of what you wanted to do in your life. On a day-to-day basis, what does your day look like? From you mentioned a lot of terms that maybe our viewers might not understand. So can you kind of break it down? Like when you go into the office, like what are you doing on a day-to-day basis as a network engineer?
Yeah, so as a network engineer, your day-to-day environment will look very, I guess, I wouldn't say they're all the same, but it will look similar to this. So you'd go in the morning and you'd analyze, or you'd at least check your emails. So you spend at least maybe an hour and a half just checking emails. And then if you get stuck on your own personal emails, that's another hour and a half, but let's not go there. But you spend at least maybe about an hour during the course of the day checking your emails and responding to emails. Depending on what type of company you work for, you might be in a lot more meetings than you probably like, because you're engineering a solution, right? So some of the services or some of the platforms that I would say the things like software designers that will develop the software and the platforms that are used, you would interact with them in terms of how they're set up and how they should expect the application to behave within the network that they've built it for. So you'd spend a lot of time in meetings, and I'd say maybe about 20% really actually getting onto systems and configuring it and things like that. But that's more at the senior network level. At the junior network level, you're going to be the person that is putting together the commands, actually jumping onto the equipment, configuring them, and either deploying them or sending them out, shipping them, and doing things like that. And that kind of constitutes most of the day, right? So meetings, emails, and also basic design of a particular environment. You'll also have to do some testing that all network engineers have to do. When a new product is being deployed within the network, you'd have to test the network, test the environment, just make sure it works the way it's meant to. And benchmark, that's one of the key things that a network engineer would do, because everything is always a network problem until the network engineer says, no, it's not, right? So it's always going to be a network problem. And then we have to come in and say, okay, based on the analysis that we've done, there's nothing wrong with the network, you should be good to go. And then they'll look at the application and the SQL database and stuff like that and come back and tell you that there's something wrong. So that's more like higher level, mid-level. Lower level, you're probably going to be doing a lot of tickets, right? Tickets. So users call in, they have an issue, and it's not so much as my laptop or something like that is, this application is not working the way it's meant to, or I can't connect to the environment, and you pick up that ticket and you'd kind of work with the end user and trying to figure out what's going on and troubleshoot those type of things. So that's at the lower level of the network engineering realm. So that's kind of the day-to-day activities of what you would do. Yeah.
Awesome. So I've asked every single participant here today, just in terms of salary range. So hit me with what you got.
I'm telling you, all I know is that my brother, that I'm in the wrong job. I'm playing. But for network engineering, the salary can range anywhere from, I'll say like a beginning network engineer that's starting off for the first time without zero experience, can come in anywhere from like 52 to about 60, 70 thousand annual. And that can range on a base salary depending on which state you're in, from that to maybe about 90, maybe reaching that 100, that figure. For a senior network engineer, you're kind of talking ranges of about 80 to about 110, 120. Once you get into what they call the architect level, that's when you're ranging from about 120 to about 190, almost 200,000. And that's kind of where it sits for network engineering. that's just network specifically. But when you talk about IT, within the IT realm of networking, you also have the security aspect, right? And the security aspect, they tend to, I think they tend to earn a little bit more than the network architects, so to speak. So that's where you start getting into network security, actual physical security, right? Preventing hackers from getting in. And then you've got the cybersecurity, but that's a different topic altogether. I don't want to go there, but that is a little bit part of that environment. So network, you've got that, security, you've got that. Then you also got wireless engineers, which are part of the network environment as well. And they range anywhere from about 150 to about 250. And the wireless engineer can range from internal wireless, in the office wireless, to what you actually call wireless, which is your Verizon, your AT&T cellular wireless coverage. And so that's kind of the range. But normal network engineering, starting off, you're about 50, 60, and you can go all the way up to about 200. Yeah.
Awesome. And, you know, we spoke earlier, and you mentioned that you did a lot of traveling back in the day. So can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of maybe for some people that actually might be a perk, right? Just to be able to have the ability, you mentioned you traveled to, you know, France, to different countries in Europe. Can you tell us a little bit about that just in terms of your role as a network engineer?
Yeah, so in my earlier years, when I was back in the UK, there were 2 network engineers that worked for this global company. And so every time we would get to what we'd call a new office build out, where they would have installed the furniture and all of that stuff, run the cables, but they needed the actual switching and routing and wireless and phones and all of that installed and configured. They would send out the network engineers. And so we had the pleasure of being able to travel pretty much, for me, around Europe, right? They had network engineers in the US. I traveled in the US, and for us, we covered the European region. So France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and we get to travel for up to about 2 weeks at a time. And you'd spend, and you would work hard, right? You'd spend at least 12 hours, you know, configuring and putting into place and racking and doing all of that, interconnecting devices together, making sure and testing the environment just to make sure that everything worked the way it's meant to work. So the perks of that is you get to travel and you get to see a few places. But yeah, that's one of the cool things about being in networking. All
right. My last question before we move into our general Q&A session is, for someone who's heard your story, right? You've been, you know, through a number of different countries to get to where you are. Where do you start, right? Someone's in college, someone is in school, and they're thinking about a career as a network engineer. Where do they start?
So network engineering, I would say, is probably one of the few places that has a bit of an advantage. And the advantage is simply this, is that if you can be certified, or if you can get certified in the different areas, whether it's security, whether it's something more specific away from the Cisco networking, something like Palo Alto, something like Juniper, something like Aruba, Mist, and any of those areas, if you can certify in that space, then you're certified to work as a network engineer. So you can update your resume, you can put it out there, and some company will most likely hire you because they may not be able to pay the high prices for the senior or the mid-level network engineers, but they know that at least you know the product, right? So I've always taken network engineering as almost the tool that you use to leapfrog to your next phase, right? And so for a network engineer, for a beginner, CCNA, network engineering within the Cisco world, right? You can probably certify, if you really wanted to, within the span, if I'm going according to the course that I did, but that was back then, right? And there was a lot of information, but if I'm going according to the course back then, you could literally go from learning to certified within 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm talking fast cramming, Chupo Ghana style, right? but that's what I mean by it's a tool that you can have, that you can use to leapfrog from where you are to where you want to be. right? So it becomes something that if you wanted to, if you had the money to go and do the fast track course, or you're really smart and you really just want to chew the books and be certified as quick as you can, how fast you go is really up to you. So you can certify really quickly, and then you can start working within that field. And from there, you can branch into any areas you want. Some people have used it as a stepping stone, which I think is still very good. Some people have used it as a way to be able to bring in income while they study something else, which I think is really good, right? If I become a network engineer and I go more towards a data center specific side, and I want to do late evening nights working in the data center, but earning professional pay, right? And not part-time or working, nothing wrong with any other workplaces, but when you're working part-time, the salary is not there, right? So that's where the struggle is. But this is a tool that you can really use and say, if I certify within this space, can I find work during these hours? Yes. And do I get paid? You might get paid really well. And that gives you the opportunity to kind of expand your horizons from there. So I definitely say, if you want to go into it, it's a space that you can get into very quickly. It's not a year, 2 years, it's a very quick certify. You've got to cram. And that's one thing that to be aware of. It's very intense. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna move quickly into the winner of our pop quiz, and then we will begin our Q&A session. So let's see here. All right. So the winner of our quiz is Willie Will. I don't know who that is, but you were able to answer the questions in the fastest possible time, and you got the most points. So congratulations, whoever you are, Willie Will. And Kings was second, and Doug was third. So let's move into Q&A. So I'm going to ask all of my panelists to come on camera, and we can get ready to answer some questions. So feel free to post questions using, what's it called? Let's see here. You can either use Zoom, or if you want to ask anonymously, you can also just post your questions with menti.com. And then our panelists will be able to help answer some of these questions. So as we wait for people to type some of the questions, I think I'll just throw another general question out there. Either any one of you can answer, but what have been some of the struggles? I don't think we've had an opportunity to really talk about that, but what are some of the things that you struggled with in your career, when you were either trying to get into this specific tech field or tech industry, or maybe it was even just transitioning between roles? So what are some of the challenges or struggles that you've had as we wait for other folks to post questions? Anyone can go.
I guess my mic is off, so I'll speak on that. So I think within the IT field, right, whether it's software, informatics, or even networking, in general, I don't think we have a lot of colored people within that space, right? And I think it's something that is becoming more and more evident, right? So even though we're working within that space, it's evident because when you move up into the hierarchy of management and further up, you will see that we're not really in that space at all, right? So I think that's one of the things that you will see, depending on where you are, depending on where you're coming into the field. So originally, when I was first going into it, it was interesting because I don't think they expected me to be there. Neither did they expect me to know the amount of material that I did. And even, I won't say even now, but, back then, because I'd gone through, kind of some of the levels of IT, from desktop support to server support. And whenever I'm on calls and you're talking, they begin to realize that actually this guy, he has a bit more knowledge than what he's letting on. And it's one of those things I think it's very smart not to play dumb, but not to show people your cards too early, right? Because when you do that, they're like, oh, okay, we figured you out, you're good to go. But I think that was one of the barriers for me, that as I was going into it, I was like, why isn't there anybody else like me here, right? Why am I having to what's the right word? Why am I having to search first and foremost for people within my field? Like, is there anybody else within any form of IT where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I got to Dallas, and I was just like, great, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to see, we got to get something going, right? We got to get IT folks get together, software engineers, programmers, all of that get together. And I get there in zero, nobody, zero. People don't even know about it, right? It was so scarce, and for me, I think the strongest part that's been pushed is the medical field, which is absolutely great, right? Give me just a moment.
Yep, he'll be right back. Any Kofi or Yvonne, you want to chime in about any struggles while Emmanuel rejoins?
Yeah, actually, so I was actually going to say the same thing he said. There are very few colored people, and especially like Ghanaians as well. So it was a big struggle. Like when I was in college, I would see other ethnicities like try to be together and learn together and like do work together. It was very hard. I would say I did a lot of my assignments alone, which maybe was in the end somewhat good as well, because then I wasn't like leaning on anyone to understand the material, but it was very, I was alone a lot of the times during my coursework because of that. Like I would say in my classes, say in a class of like 50 or 60, like there'll be one or two colored people in my college. So
The whole college?
No, in my class, say for example, say we had like 50, 60 classes, 50 member classes.
Mm-hmm.
But like in that size of 50, you'd have like 2 blacks.
Yeah.
Max 3. Yeah. So I think we can do better on that. Mm-hmm.
I can definitely resonate with that as well. Cool. Yvonne, do you want to share something, or do you want to move on to the next question?
No, same thing, but also finding mentors that would help you pave or figure out what path to go has also been harder. While you're talking about finding people, the diversity, not just in ethnicity or race, but also then gender as well. And then just finding people that actually can connect with you. I mean, you didn't have to, at least at the time, I didn't have that many nurses doing that kind of work. It was heavy tech, but then, finding mentors that can relate to where you're trying to go, to where to take your career, and also finding out what your career is going to be like, your career path. Like, there's so many branches where you can go into, and figuring out which way to go, what's the best for you to fit your lifestyle. It's not always that easy.
Agreed. All right. Awesome. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we're organizing these workshops, these programs, to increase the number of Black people in tech, to ensure that the number of women in tech increase, to ensure that, we're represented at the decision-making tables, right? So there's a question from Nana Kwesi. I'm going to take one question from the board before we jump to Nana Kwesi. So the first question says, how do you transition from biological science background to Emma's computer science, specifically software engineering? Anyone want to take that? Kofi or Yvonne?
Okay, maybe I can give it a try. So, okay, so the way I would answer this question is, if I wasn't in this situation, I would first take some classes on either Udemy or Coursera on just programming basics. So because like those are very cheap, like maybe max $10, $20 or something around that range. And then if I like it, if I like computer science, I'll just register for an MS in a college and go do that. Or I would do a boot camp. So boot camps are, say, roughly around 6 months. So you can do a boot camp in software engineering. It will teach you basically what you'll be studying in, I don't know, say a year or 2 years in college, but it will be very intensive. And so after a boot camp, you can either apply as a software engineer to jobs, or you can also further your studies because he was asking about MS, so you can also go do an MS. So there are so many bridges to get into the field. And I'll also say that you don't actually need an MS in computer science to work as a software engineer. Like I got my MS, my master's, but like it wasn't necessary. I know so many people who have entered software engineering that didn't even go to college.
That's right.
Yes, it's very common. And actually, those are some of the most talented people I've actually seen as well. Like those who didn't go to college happen to be some of the most talented people I've seen in the field. So yeah, with software engineering, computer science, like there's so many resources online that you can just use to bridge yourself in. And if you want to do a master's, yes, definitely go for it. But that'll be my 2 cents.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So we will share some resources specifically for folks who are interested in software engineering for health informatics and also network engineering. We will share some information at the end. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back, Emmanuel. I'm gonna come back to you. I'm gonna take a quick question from Nana Kwesi, and then Gilbert, and then we'll go back to the board. So Nana Kwesi, the time is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And I want to say a big thank you to all the panelists for this gem that you are dropping. And so my question is for Emmanuel. You pretty much answered some of my questions, but I wanted to find out, is cloud network different from the network engineering field that we all know? Thank you.
He played outside.
You're on mute, Emmanuel. I can't hear you yet. Not yet. No, not yet. Okay, so what we'll do as Emmanuel sorts out sound, Nana Kwesi, I've noted down your question. So your question was, what is the difference between, I believe, cloud networks and the networking that Emmanuel described? So once Emmanuel gets back online, he can answer that. Elder Gilbert Boache, do you want to go next?
Okay, thank you so much for the program. My question will go to Yvonne. Yvonne, can you share more on what you do at your job? Because sitting back, I'm thinking that Amazon as an online marketing platform. How did you end up being a nurse, informatics at Amazon? And another assignment I will give you to Samuel, that one time on one of your programs, if you can share something or bring people that will share the various departments, like if you take Facebook, are they medical side, are they accounting side, which I think they are. So, and if you go to Amazon, what are the departments, so that people will know that it's not only the online platform, marketing platform that we all know about Amazon, but we'll also get to know of other things. And also, please share also about the challenges, because I'm very practical. Sometimes if you don't share the challenges, in terms of going through the program, training yourself, getting to where you are. And we kind of share the good side. People will end up meeting the challenges and they get disappointment. So please share more also on the challenges that you face. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that's 3 questions in one. You kind of cheated there, but that's okay. So I've taken note of your second question to share information about some of the opportunities working in big tech, right? So Amazon, you think of Amazon, but it's actually a number of different companies. So we'll try and do something like that in the future. So Yvonne, you want to take the first one?
Right. So Amazon Care we provide care, patient care. It's a telehealth platform with some hybrid where you actually, we can get people out to specified locations to take care of patients. So that's really the tech part. But like Sam was saying, you know, within Amazon, there's so many areas. Is on the Amazon Web Services side, which, by the way, a lot of health systems have their systems sitting right on top of Amazon Web Services. But really, it's not too different from anything you do in healthcare. So I probably would talk more about what health informatics would entail, because that's what you're doing is you're looking at how a system is configured so that a clinician, like a nurse who's providing care, is able to get into the system, document the care they're providing, but also be able to view, for example, what a patient, you know, the patient's chief complaint, what has been done for them, and also, you know, the physician's orders or lab results or medications. It's really a comprehensive view of, when you're talking about healthcare IT, you're looking at the comprehensive view of a patient's medical record. That entails also looking at how you can integrate data that's coming from outside, because if you've ever been in the hospital, you don't just go to a primary care physician's office. You could go to an urgent care. How do you get that information into the record that the primary care physician is going to see? If you have a child and you got admitted and you delivered, how do you get your delivery record into, again, your primary care physician's record? So for example, those of you that have been in a hospital system that uses Epic, you have your MyChart, the patient portal. A lot of that information is flowing from different areas, and it has to be integrated and presented to the patient, to the clinician, to anyone that's really providing care or receiving care in a way that is digestible. If I came in and you had labs and then I just come in and just put a whole bunch of gibberish, you wouldn't be able to make sense of it. But as a nurse informaticist, my role would be to make sure that what is presented to the patient is presented in a way that they can understand it. From a data perspective, you go one more layer of figuring out what the pertinent pieces of data are that needs to be looked at, because there's so much data that it can become noise. So you need to organize it in a way that tells a story. So in the resources that I shared with Sam, I think I added a few books about just storytelling with data. How do you bring insights in the data to the person providing care at the right time so they can actually be able to act on it? So as a clinician, you know that you have to, so a patient has checked their blood sugar, or you check their blood sugar and their blood sugar is low. What do? Well, you have certain steps that you have to take. Well, if you are 50 years old, you know, or sometimes 45 years old, you know you have to have a colonoscopy. Well, we would come through the record, see, hey, did they have a colonoscopy? If not, if you have an appointment coming up with your primary care physician, we got to make sure that we present that to the primary care physician so you don't leave the office without a reminder that you need to have a colonoscopy. If possible, we would like to coordinate, if it's within your health system, coordinate so that you can get the appointment. And then when you go for your appointment, we want to be able to get the data back and say, okay, these are the results. So then your provider can look at it and take action hopefully it's a positive thing. So it's really looking at the tail end and saying, this is how a patient's care should be delivered. Did we deliver it that way? How do we improve from it or on it? And how do we deliver something better? There are obviously a lot of opportunities. We talked about just underrepresentation. We have a lot of populations that are not well represented. So how do we make the technology accessible so that it gets closer to being equitable? So when you're putting tools in front of people, creating patient education, for example, is it at a level that can be read, or is it so full of medical jargon that the person reading it is still not getting it? So sometimes it's also being that advocate for the patient at that level from a technology standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yvonne. So I'm going to jump to, before Nora, you go, I'm going to go back to Emmanuel. So the question, yep, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I'm going to give you another question as well, so you can answer two questions at once. So the question was about cloud networking and from Nana Kwesi. And there's also another question on the board, which says, what are some entry-level positions in network engineering? So if you can grab those two, and then we'll jump to Nora.
Yeah. So cloud networking is very similar to, I would say it's very similar to networking, but it's predominantly based within your cloud infrastructure, your Azure, your AWS, your Google environment, right? So it's talking about interconnectivity or inter-routing between that environment. So you don't necessarily step down at what you call the backbone switch level. You actually stay up within the actual, I guess, the cloud infrastructure environment. So you may even play with virtual switches, or what is known as virtual switching. But mainly you'll be looking at routing or moving traffic within the cloud infrastructure between the things like EPGs or containers or things like that. These are like different, what you call customer environments that are within the hosted platform. So cloud engineering or cloud networking is kind of based on that, right? Is networking within the cloud infrastructures, where you might go beyond a single cloud infrastructure like Azure. You might go into AWS, and you might even go into the Google space. And how do you interconnect these environments together? You will by all means step down at the backbone network level infrastructure. You have to at some level, but you don't have to go too deep into that. So cloud networking is very much similar to physical networking on the infrastructure side, but it's mainly within the cloud infrastructure. So it's still a very good place to go into. And I think as we look forward into the future, that's going to be a big place, right? Within the Cisco world that I'm in, they've got network engineers, and then now they've got what they call software engineers, which are not too dissimilar from software engineering, but this time is more gauged at the network infrastructure, right? Automation and all of those things. Cisco calls it DevOps and all the other stuff that comes with it. But that's kind of where you'd be. So you'd be more of a software network engineer as opposed to the physical network engineer. But both are very similar, but they are different. One, you remain in the upper layer, and then the other one, the physical engineer, you remain in the lower layer where you're physically cabling things up, configuring and architecting at that level. And then at the cloud level, you're actually at the application layer higher up above in those layers. And that's where your networking applications and things like that together. But in both cases, you will learn a bit about the network, and the network guy has to learn a bit about cloud infrastructure to be able to work within those environments. I hope that helps. And what was the second question? Some of the entry-level jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the entry-level job, I would say it's like your beginning network engineer was what you're classified as your junior network engineer. That's the person that when you first start the job, you haven't touched any equipment. Obviously, you've touched it in training, but you haven't touched it in real life. And so you're given what they call the rack and stack and the configuration of a device. So you get a switch or a router or a wireless controller or something like that, and you'll be the one that's configuring it, giving it an IP address, getting it on the network, doing some basic configurations to get it routing and move, or get traffic routing and moving across the equipment that you've put into place. So that's the basic level, I guess, engineer. And I hope that helps. I can go a bit further, but that's really kind of where you are. You're going to be kind of the hands and feet. You're going to be racking, stacking, configuring, actually getting onto the console, configuring your IP addresses, getting it to do what it's meant to do, which is either to switch or to route traffic out there. So that's a basic network engineering role. And by the way, that is across, if you think about it, that is across all companies, right? Every company that have ever existed and will ever exist will require a network infrastructure. I always see it as this: network engineering is what you'd call the backbone of what everything sits on. It is literally the backbone of what. So the question was asked, is the internet built by network engineers? Yes, it is. We didn't invent it. That's different. But we do build it, right? We build it. And to give you a good example of a network, because some people still can't grasp what it really is, right? A network is literally, think about your home network. You've got your router that has these ports on the back, and you connect your devices wirelessly to your router. Now imagine you had your next door neighbor, you wanted to be able to connect to something at their house, right? The best way I can describe it to you is you would take a physical cable, you will walk outside your house or throw it out your window, Ghana style, and then take it down, take it into their house, and you would plug it into their router or their switch. Now you've linked these two environments together. You have a cohesive network between yours and theirs. You can now talk back and forth. Now imagine doing that. And these are physical cables, by the way, globally, right? Obviously much, much better routers. And we're using fiber optics to carry the traffic. But when we talk about how you talk to somebody in Ghana over WhatsApp and all of that stuff, you are literally writing the backbone of an infrastructure to do that. Your traffic, as you talk, is hitting the wire, traversing over the United States, hitting the East Coast, going underground over fiber optic cables, bouncing electrical waves all the way to Ghana or to some part of Africa. Then that route bounces over routers and routers and routers and eventually gets to the carrier that services that person's phone, and then eventually goes wirelessly and hits their actual phone. So as you talk, you are literally using the backbone of the internet / the infrastructure to make communication happen. And every application and everything that runs on top of the network layer. Without that, you have nothing. It's a bit much, but I hope that helps.
No, it does.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think I've become a network engineer overnight. All right, Nora, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. Happy to be here. My name is Nora Asante. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. My first question goes to all of you. Coming from HR background, line of business, what will be my best bet route within the line of business, within the IT space that I might go that would be more beneficial to me? Second question. Do you guys have, looking at this COVID season and people transitioning and people going back to the workforce after a break, like mothers having babies back to back? I have 4 children. Like, do you have something like a retention program from somebody who wants to go through career transition? Do you have something like that? Or do you have plans doing something like that? If I may ask, please. Thank you.
All right, everyone's quiet. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I don't know of any returnship programs, at least not in health informatics. Yeah, so that's that. So there's a place for that. Like I said, I was laid off right when I was about to have my child. So getting back in the industry was hard. It was when you have a gap in your career, sometimes it's hard to explain it. And in a very male-dominated field, it's even harder. But there's always a way. I think still, though, that the courses, like the beauty of the internet that Emmanuel created, is that there is access to a lot of courses, many that are free. the key is finding the time, right? I mean, if you're a busy parent, it can be hard. And I found that maybe just taking an hour a day when everybody has gone to bed usually is the best time. It's hard on you, but it's usually like just breaking things down over time. It's been the best way. And again, networking, like talking to people there, you have no idea the things people connect you to. Oh, there's a course somewhere here. Somebody's hosting a boot camp and it's geared specifically towards getting women of color in tech, for example. Like those are things that you won't find searching the internet on your own, but people will connect you to those opportunities when they come across it. So I know for some of us culturally, like reaching out to people is like being really, really vulnerable. But again, if you're really that hungry for what you're trying to achieve, reach out to people and you'll be amazed at who comes to you. HR could have helped us though with this whole gap in career. You know, it's amazing how this search optimization engines, that's another thing actually, when you're searching for a job, pay attention to the keywords in the job description, because that is most likely going to get you your foot through the door. If your resume has absolutely nothing in alignment with what's in the job description, you can almost be guaranteed that you're not going to even make the screening part. Again, you can accelerate it by using LinkedIn. Kweku already said that he's on there all the time. It's helpful. It really is. It's just, how do you put and then the other thing you have to think about is just what image are you putting forth of yourself, right? If people can't look at your profile and know where you've been, where you want to go, it's really hard for them to even connect with you and try to connect you, or get, like even consider you in the beginning. So that's what I remember. What were the other questions?
Yeah, so in the interest of time, we're gonna, I wanna make sure that we can do the 10-minute breakout rooms. So Nora, I'm gonna ask that you join Yvonne's breakout room to probe further into any specifics that she can answer you there. I will add though, just in terms of the retention that you mentioned, every company usually has a policy on, for example, maternity or paternity leave. And it does differ from company to company, but I think that companies are waking up to the fact that you cannot penalize someone for having a child. You'll find, and there are obviously policies for Amazon that I can't get into, but there are policies which help protect people who do give birth and who can hopefully rejoin the workforce after they've had their child. And I, for example, are one of them. Recently had twins, so my job was protected and there wasn't any kind of repercussions for having a child. So we're going to move on quickly. We're running out of time. I want to wrap this up pretty quick. So this is quick fire. This is quick fire question and answer. So here we go. Let's go to Kofi. So this is here. What advice will you give to Ghanaians living in Ghana looking to find remote tech jobs? Quick fire means under 45 seconds.
Lead Code, go to Lead Code, get an account there, do more than 200 questions, and then any company in the world you'll be able to work on if you're able to do more than 200 questions in Lead Code. That's my answer.
Awesome. Thank you. Another quick fire one. Yvonne, I'm a nurse and would like to branch into health informatics. What can I do in terms of courses and where do I look?
HIMSS, the health informatics. There's a health informatics buddy that has a lot of courses. It has trainings, just documents. The other part is also looking at places like Coursera, just looking for. And then again, connecting with your hospital. If you're in the hospital, there are opportunities. And we can talk a little bit more if we go in the breakout rooms.
Yep. And networking is very important. That's why we're doing these sessions, so you can connect with someone who already works in the field, and hopefully they can connect you with the other connection. All right, so next question. Kofi, if you wish to become a software developer, does your major have to be computer science specifically?
No. As I said, you can be a software developer without going to college. So
all right, thank you.
As long as you know your stuff. Yeah.
Another one for either Kofi or Emmanuel. I'm from a non-tech background looking to delve into cloud engineering. What will be your advice for me?
All right, so I would say that definitely for cloud engineering, you want to look at, I would call it companies that are actually training within that field, right? My particular area is specifically network engineering, but you want to look at companies that are training. One of the places that I know that I've seen a lot is Azure, right? Azure has their networking in their software network engineers within the cloud environment. AWS also has their network training courses that you can do. And also Google has their network training that you can do for cloud engineering. So these are all spaces that you can go into. Each of them have their specific training courses that you can do. But if you want to just touch on it and just see where you are, just like we've all said, if you go to Google, you're going to find like a myriad of training courses that are out there. But that's the area that I'd say that if you want to go into that space, you probably want to pick one. I don't know which one's the best one or which one's going to win on top of the other, whether it's Azure, AWS, or Google. I forgot what Google's one.
AWS is going to win every single time.
AWS is going to win every single time. Okay, all right, then that's where you want to go. Go to AWS, and they've got training courses that you can actually do within that space. That's it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're almost done. This is the last one, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms. And I see some questions in the chat. I think there's one from Kobe. It says, how can I get a certificate into cybersecurity? And I think that's what Emmanuel just mentioned, picking essentially which cloud provider that you want to do, or if you just want to be generic and do the Security Plus by, there's a company called, where's my book? I forgot, but there's a company which actually has like a number of security programs. Kofi already mentioned, go to Udemy or courses out there which can give you kind of the basics. In the breakout sessions, you can ask more directed questions. So I'm going to jump into the next one and the last question, and then we'll have 10 minutes of breakout rooms, and then we'll call it good. So the next question is there or are there any internships for college students you know of that students could apply for? I know of one. It's called the Sankofa Achievers in Tech Program.
Yeah, I'll say that every company has an internship program. You've just got to make sure that you're looking them up. We have internship programs for many. I see like students kind of walking around day by day, every day in our location. But every single company, most Fortune 500 companies will have an internship program that you can find and get into. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think that was the last question. So I'm going to open up 3 breakout rooms. And once again, this is essentially just for people who want to ask questions specifically for our guests. So if you're not comfortable asking any questions over here, you can do that in the breakout rooms. They won't be recorded. So you can also connect, share your information if you want to. So let me just create this quickly, and then we can wrap it up after the breakout rooms. So while I do this, Yvonne, maybe you can speak quickly about some of the other items that I might have missed.
I heard people asking about some of the scholarship opportunities. I know again, HIMSS is a huge organization. It's the Healthcare Information Management System Society. They have what they call the Technology Informatics Guiding Education Reform, TIGER. They've got a few internships in informatics. I think I have to check and see what the requirements are. They're opening up in July, like the application period for the fall of 2022 starts in July. So I think it'll be one of the resources I'll have linked up in the resources that Sam is going to share later on.
Yes, and also on looking for internships, There's this program called NSB, National Society of Black Engineers. They have yearly programs, and almost every company, like a lot of companies, like more than 100 companies come there just to recruit Blacks to work for them. You would have to go through the interview process, but it's much easier because you would have so many companies looking just for you. So that's another opportunity you can take advantage of. It's NSBE.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I have 3 breakout rooms open. I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to go to their assigned rooms. There's health informatics, network engineering, and software engineering. And you'll have an opportunity to interact with our panelists and maybe ask questions that you couldn't get to. And once, it'll just be for 10 minutes. So please try and get through as many questions as you can. Once we come back, our program will be done. All right, we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, can you send me to one of the group, please?
Which room do you want to go to?
Software engineering.
All right, you got it.
Can I also be sent to nursing informatics, please?
Yep. 1 second. Let me just assign Sir. So Sam. So Sam Legend, you said which room did you want to go to?
Yeah, software engineering.
Okay, got it. And who else wants to be assigned to a room?
This is Bodhi, nursing informatics.
Okay.
I'm Sam. I want to go to software engineering.
Okay. You could also directly do that inside of the taskbar. So feel free to move between rooms as well.
Can you launch it?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, I guess maybe people want to ask, I was asking if you can launch it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that a lot of folks have already joined in the various rooms. Let me know if you're having trouble, and I will